Karen, when we visit the exhibition, we understand very quickly that London is not about London for Monet, it's about a kind of booster for his creation of the nymphéa, because he go early 20th century, at the beginning of the century, and he work on the motif, and with this gloomy weather, with this brume, as we say, in France, he is going to create something special, and the idea comes from London. What is the idea?
Yes. London was absolutely crucial for him, and it really opened his eyes to the atmospheric effects, and crucially the fog that was such a feature of London, such a characteristic, really blurring water and sky and creating a veil over everything is something that he will then start doing when he starts painting the water lilies, the nymphéa, from 1905 onwards, so right after his London exhibition.
But why is London producing this very special effect, you think?
London, had a very unusual setup, which is that there was industrial activity, factories and smokestacks at the heart of the city. It seems incredible to think that, but staying at the Savoy, and you just look over Waterloo Bridge, and there was this incredible display of factories, and that is because the South Bank wasn't occupied when the Industrial Revolution started, and that's different from Paris, where all the factories were established around in the periphery, in the suburbs, where the Impressionists live, Argenteuil and Ivry. So they saw all of that activity, but it wasn't at the heart of the city. And so in London, you had this activity near the river. So the river had its own vapor and mist and fog that mixed with the pollution and the smoke and the steam of the trains and the boats. And all of that just made this incredible effect that occurred in no other city in the world.
But there's a second city which creates quite the same effect. It's Venice, no?
It's Venice and a little bit Rouen, actually. I wonder if Rouen was a little bit of a start for him when he was.
But does he go back to Rouen?
No, he doesn't. Oh, sorry. He doesn't go to
only
back
to
Rouen.
Venice.
Only, and then after London, he goes to Venice, and so there it was really this love of the reflections on the water, the different. And again, he doesn't go during the spring or summer. He goes during the autumn, and in London he came in winter. So he really loved those kind of the colder. The denser effects, both in London and Venice.
But what is really shocking, in a good way, about what we see here is the colors, because it's light pink, purple, light yellow. It's very impressive, right?
I think for a colorist like Monet, he must have been absolutely entranced by the colors. And the colors were because, of course, of the type of coal that was being burnt in those factories. And so, depending on the emissions, sometimes they were it was sulfur, so the sulfur created this yellow fog. Sometimes it was a different type of produce, and so that made purple fogs, green fogs.
So he doesn't invent.
No. People describe the fog exactly as he paints it. It's really quite remarkable. So I think for him, he absolutely saw these colors in London, and that's what fascinated him so much.
And so, how many times did he come to London?
So he. To paint the Thames series proper, he comes 3 times. First of all, in 1899, and he's visiting his son, Michel, who is learning English. And he says, I'm going to take some paint supplies. And when he starts painting the Thames from his hotel balcony, he just is so absolutely fascinated by the effects that he then decides to come back 2 more times in 1900 and 1901. Several months at a time, so that he's able to paint and have a lot of time looking at the Thames. So it's a really ambitious project that he does. He's very, very committed to these, Thames paintings.
But the process is about beginning painting, and after going back to the studio and finish the paintings, right?
Yes, he says that he is unable to finish any of the works because the weather effects are so changing that he doesn't have time to finish the painting. He says, I saw some beautiful effects. He writes to his wife, Alice, in Giverny. I saw some beautiful effects, but none lasting more than 5 minutes. So I have to abandon my canvas and start a new one. So when he goes back to Giverny, he has over 100 canvases that are all unfinished. And in a way, that is how he has been working already. He says that he needs the time in the studio to look at them all together, to take a little bit of distance from the motif, and then to finish them according to his visual memory. So that's how he had been working almost throughout that decade of the 1890s.
So it makes me think about Gustave Le Gray process for his painting. It's made of reality, but it's also a collage between reality and fiction in a way.
Yes, exactly. And actually, one critic who saw the Thames series exhibition in 1904 in Durand-Ruel at Durand-Ruel's when it was unveiled, he says Monet paints reality, but an enchanted reality, and I think that describes it very well.
And so the exhibition at Durand-Ruel, it's
So,
made of 37 paintings?
so exactly. So Monet brought back over 100 from London, and then over the next couple of years, he set about choosing which ones he wanted to show for this exhibition. And he was very nervous because it was quite a departure from him. It was back to an urban landscape, a foreign subject, and incredibly bold in really pushing almost towards abstraction with this fog. So he really worked on it for several years, and then finally he selected 37 and completed them, and he says he completed them all together, just like he had for his previous series, because for him, he says, it is all together that they need to be seen.
Ah, wow.
They take on their full value and their full meaning only when seen as a group.
And
that's
now,
a very important aspect.
and now there's only not only, but there's 21, right?
Yes, so we've managed to reassemble half of this initial exhibition, the works that Monet himself chose. And so this group of works hasn't been together in 120 years, ever since that first exhibition. And we wanted to bring them back together, the ones that we could, to really understand what was Monet trying to do? What was he trying to tell his audience? What was he trying to make the visitors feel?
And
I think it's that immersive quality. Maybe we use immersive a bit too much nowadays with the immersive experience, but you really need to see them together. And you have this panorama, which again will happen, with the water lilies. Well, he'll have this panorama. And you go from one work to the next, you compare them, you look at their similarities and their differences, and you see all the variations, and you experience what Monet himself experienced looking at the Thames for months and months.
but it's almost always the same point of view.
Yes, so there's 3 sites along the river that he chooses, 2 from his hotel balcony, towards Charing Cross Bridge and Waterloo Bridge, and then 1 outside. He goes to St. Thomas Hospital and he paints the Houses of Parliament. But for him, there were 3 sites along the Thames, and so he calls it the Thames series because the river is the most important. And so it's less about the buildings or the structures than it is about the effects.
Atmospheric effect. And just in few words, what happened in London for him before that?
So Monet had always been an Anglophile. He really loved London. He was raised in Normandy, so I think there was an affinity. And London was very important to him because that is where he came in 1870 to seek refuge from the Franco-Prussian War. He had just gotten married, he had a young son, and he stayed in London for many months to escape all of that in Paris. And so it was a place that he really loved, and indeed he sent his 2 sons to study English. And it was always a place, I think, where he wanted to also slightly measure himself against Turner, against all of the great English landscape artists.
But he discovered them here, right?
Exactly. In 1870, when he came, and he was with Pissarro, they discovered Turner at the National Gallery, and it was a really kind of, Pissarro says it was a very important moment for them.
Merci beaucoup.
Je suis désolée, en fait,